Welcome to Vintage Noise. If you're with us here on our YouTube channel, you already know we have a thing for cars that live at a crossroads. You know, those amazing, often forgotten projects that are just complicated.
And today we've got a perfect example of that, a real cultural contradiction on wheels. We're talking about the Ford Comète, built in France from 1951 to 1954.
It is an absolutely beautiful car, so rare. And it's just this incredible case study of French high fashion being maybe a little reluctantly wrapped around some very old school American V8 power.
Right. This was Ford of France's, or Ford SAF's, big attempt at a top-of-the-line luxury coupe.
An attempt is a good word for it.
It was less of a normal production car and more of an experiment. It came from this really strange collaboration. So our mission here is to sort of trace its fascinating and very short story.
A story of Italian-style French craftsmanship and, well, some pretty dated American mechanics.
And its failure is almost as interesting as its beauty.
Okay, so let's start with the design because the pedigree here is just incredible. The advertising called it the French luxury car. And, I mean, if you just look at the lines, it absolutely screams grand luxe.
Oh, definitely. And where that design came from is an amazing story in itself. Those sleek, modern lines. They were drawn by Italy's Pininfarina.
The Pininfarina, who would soon rename his firm to the legendary Pininfarina.
It's the very same. He delivered the blueprint for just pure elegance. But the actual manufacturing of the body, that happened in France. And this is where it gets really interesting for collectors.
The coachwork, right. That perfect two-door fixed-head coupe body. It was all done by hand by Facel-Métallon.
And that's the crucial link. Facel-Métallon was the coach builder that would, very soon after, become the legendary luxury car maker Facel Vega.
So the Comète is not just some obscure French Ford. It's basically the direct design ancestor to the Facel Vega cars.
Exactly. Jean Daninos, the owner of Facel, he used the Comète project as a springboard. He was so impressed with the quality, the reception of the design, that it directly inspired the look and the build standards for his later, iconic Facel Vega models.
So it's the origin story for one of France's greatest post-war luxury brands.
It absolutely is. And high society noticed immediately. A jury of 20 Parisian personalities voted it the most elegant European car.
But let's get into the corporate side of this, because the story of how this car even got made is fantastic.
It's pure corporate drama. The head of Ford SAF in France, a man named Francois Lehido, he developed and launched this car completely without Dearborn's knowledge.
Wait, without their knowledge, how do you launch a flagship car completely under the radar of Henry Ford II?
Well, it tells you everything you need to know about the friction between the French subsidiary and the American headquarters. Lehido ran a pretty autonomous shop, but this was a huge risk.
I can imagine. So what happened when Henry Ford II found out? He must have been furious.
Oh, the reports say he was absolutely livid. But then he saw the car.
Hey.
And the design was just so stunning, so undeniably beautiful, that the anger apparently just melted away. He ended up ordering several of them for his family.
That's incredible. So its beauty literally saved it from a corporate execution.
For a moment, yes. And he wasn't the only one in high places. Prince Rainier of Monaco, who was known for his taste in cars, he bought one for Grace Kelly.
Wow. So it had royal approval, celebrity owners. But here's the big question. You have this exquisite French-Italian wrapper. What was actually underneath it all?
Well, that's where the dream starts to fall apart a little. The foundation was humble.
Humble is a polite word for it.
It is. The Comète was built on a shortened Ford Vedette platform. All the mechanical parts were shared with the Vedette sedan, which itself was based on an American design that Ford had decided was too small for the U.S. market after the war.
So it's a luxury coupe based on a French sedan, based on a rejected American design. And the engine was the classic Ford flathead V8.
Yes, and not a particularly powerful one at first. The initial 1951 to 52 models used the 2.2-liter Aquilon flathead V8, and it produced a miserable 66 brake horsepower.
66. For a premium luxury coupe. That sounds incredibly low, even for the early 50s.
It was. The problem was the flathead, or side valve design itself. By the 1950s, overhead valve engines were the future. The flathead design was reliable, sure, but it just couldn't breathe efficiently. It was fundamentally limited.
So you had the looks and the price tag, but the performance just wasn't there. People must have complained.
Constantly, which is why for 1953, they pushed for an upgrade. They enlarged the engine slightly to 2.4 liters. But the big change was they could raise the compression ratio from 6.8.1 up to 7.4.1.
And that was possible because better quality fuel was finally becoming available in Europe after the war, right?
Precisely. That small change bumped the power up to about 79 horsepower. Still not a rocket, but it was a noticeable improvement. The came top speed went from around 130 kilometers per hour up to about 145.
Okay, that's a bit more respectable. But let's talk about the transmission, because it wasn't just a basic manual, was it? There was a very special option.
Yes, the Codal gearbox.
Yeah.
This was a real status symbol in high-end French cars back then.
Yeah.
It was an electric hydraulically operated 4-speed pre-selector gearbox.
Pre-selector. So how did that actually work when you were driving it?
Well, you have this amazing little joystick on the steering column. You'd use it to select the next gear you wanted before you actually needed it. Then when you were ready, you'd just press and release the clutch, and the gear would change almost silently.
Incredibly smooth, no grinding gears.
Exactly. It was perfect for a luxury car focused on refinement, a really high-tech piece of kit for the time.
So they had the style, they had a high-tech transmission option. But 79 horsepower still wasn't enough to be a true grand tourer, which brings us to their last, most dramatic attempt, the Monte Carlo.
Right. Launched in 1954. Ford SAF's solution to the power problem was, let's say, a bit of a blunt instrument.
Let's just put a bigger engine in it.
A much bigger engine. They dropped in the 3.9-liter Mistral Ford flathead V8.
And that was a truck engine, wasn't it?
Essentially, yes, it was a truck engine. But it delivered a much healthier 105 horsepower, and that was finally enough to push the car past 150 kilometers per hour. It finally had the performance to match its looks.
But putting a big, unrefined truck engine in a sophisticated luxury car seems like a strange choice.
It was a trade-off, a desperate one. They needed power, and that's what they had available. But the real problem wasn't the refinement. It was the French tax system.
Ah, the cheval fiscal, the CV rating.
Exactly. That huge 3.9-liter engine gave the Monte Carlo a 22 CV tax rating. And in post-war France, that was absolutely crippling.
And a sales killer.
It was financial suicide. The annual road tax alone could cost more than buying a brand new Citroën 2CV. It pushed the car into a price bracket that only the super wealthy could even consider.
What a shame. But the Monte Carlo did get one feature that makes it instantly recognizable today: the grille.
Oh yes, the famous grille. The French nicknamed it the Coupe frites.
The French fry cutter.
The French fry cutter. It's this very distinctive, almost American-style egg crate grill. It's how you can immediately spot a Monte Carlo.
And to be fair, they did improve more than just the engine.
They did. The suspension was upgraded to handle the extra weight and speed, and maybe most importantly, it got a proper, modern, synchronized 4-speed gearbox from Pont-à-Mousson. So it was a much better car to actually drive, if you could afford the tax.
So you have all this glamour, the Facel heritage, the Monte Carlo power, but the commercial reality was just brutal.
The price tag tells the whole story. The original Comète was 65% more expensive than the Vedette sedan. The Monte Carlo was over 50% more than the top-end Ford sedan. The market was just too small.
And that unauthorized launch finally came back to haunt them. Henry Ford II had had enough of the French subsidiary losing money.
He cut his losses. In 1954, he sold the entire Ford SAF operation factory, designs, everything, to the French company Simca.
And Simca just finished it off.
Pretty much. They kept building it as the Simca Comète Monte Carlo until July of 1955, but that was only to use up the leftover parts. The car's real story was over when Ford sold up.
Which explains why they are so incredibly rare today.
Vanishingly rare. In total, only about 2,265 were ever built. And of those, fewer than 700 were the ultimate Monte Carlo version. They're so sought after now because they represent this beautiful, flawed moment in automotive history.
It really is a magnificent failure when you think about it. The Pininfarina lines, the Facel body, and this old-school American heart that was just never quite right for it.
It's a car defined by its contradictions. Italian glamour, French refinement, and an American engine that was either too weak or, in the end, too expensive to tax.
And it leads to such a fascinating what-if scenario. You look at the quality of that Facel metal-on body and you realize it was the direct DNA for the Facel Vega. Ford had the car, the builder, the vision, right before the European GT market exploded, and they sold it.
A huge strategic error. Just think, if Dearborn had actually supported it, if they'd given it a modern overhead valve V8 that could make real power without that crippling tax rating, the Comète could have been a real contender. It could have challenged Europe's best.
So here's the thought we want to leave you with. If Ford had backed the Comète with modern engineering instead of selling it for parts, could this beautiful French Ford have become a dominant force in the golden age of grand tours?
A real missed opportunity.
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this look at the short, stunning life of the Ford Comète. We'll see you next time on Vintage Noise.